welcome Nancy Galbraith. And I guess I just want to start by asking Nancy to tell you a little bit about Strange Travels and how this piece came to be, and sort of what's the title all about?
So the piece came about because David asked me if I would write a piece for contemporary ensemble. And if you're writing for contemporary ensemble, it's generally understood that the people that are performing the piece and the people that will be in the audience, they kind of know what to expect. And it's kind of a freeing thing because the people in the ensemble are ready to try new things and not be intimidated. And it's kind of a fun thing to do. The piece came, on the other hand, if you're writing, I just finished a piece for somebody's memorial service. So when you're writing a piece like that, the text is given to you, you have a lot of parameters already set for you. You know the type, obviously, the kind of music that you want to be writing and the tone of that. When you're just said, write a piece with no restrictions whatsoever, that can also be kind of, it's almost like you have to then decide, well, what do I want to try here? And you're kind of in your own world. And what I decided to do was, I was coming from, when you hear the piece, you won't realize that this is true, but I wanted to write a movement that was very, there's a lot of rhythm in it, which is true about a lot of my music, very rhythmic, but kind of in a groove sort of way, and the type of piece that could possibly be, I was envisioning it being performed in, say, a warehouse type situation in Manhattan or something like that. So there's a lot of industrial kind of sound, and you'll hear a lot of, for instance, metal percussion. Okay, and so I knew I wanted to do that theoretically. And then I also, more importantly, wanted to do something that I wanted to start with. This sort of like the second movement of the piece he was just describing, Effervescent Air. And I don't know why I have this kind of need at this point, but I wanted to start with something very small and very kind of innocent, a little motive. And then over top of this little motive that actually in and of itself is just a three-note motive, it's derived from a chord progression that I really like, which will kind of end the opening of the slow part of this movement. And then you'll hear over top of it this rather innocent sounding piano and harp coming in, or doing this texture. And then these swirling strings kind of start. And underneath this three-note motive, you'll hear the bass and the cello comes in. And the idea of which I wanted it to start like that and just gradually just keep growing and expanding to, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's like you're entering the universe or something like that. Words can't describe it. But it's the same kind of feeling that I had when I was writing the second movement of this flute piece. Where the strange part came in is my husband listened to, where is he? He's not even here. He's disappeared. He listened, there he is. He listened to the playback on the computer, and he said, "Oh, that left me with a really strange feeling." And it wasn't as if I were intending that. I didn't say, I want to write something that sounds really strange. But as I listened to it, and then this young man over here is a former student of mine, Hayden, who's doing the sound. What did you say? It gave you goosebumps. And I said, I'll take that. That's good enough. Right? So it has a very odd ambiance, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. And so the strange part of it came, that's the title. Another little side thing of that, and this is a truth, what was happening during the time that I was writing this guy. When I write music, I write for 12 hours at a time. And it seems like that would be tiring. To me, it's relaxing. But during the time that I was doing that was a large part of the month of December and half of November. And at the same time that was happening, I was also preparing to go on a trip to Thailand. And our daughter lives in Thailand and has for 5 years, so when we were getting ready to meet our granddaughter. And so there was a lot of strangeness going on in my mind, I guess, at the time that I was writing it. Not that it was intended to deliberately come out in this piece, but I guess whatever's happening in your life kind of has a way of creeping in.
Absolutely. things I love about Nancy's music is the rhythmic vitality. There's always this strong sense of rhythmic groove in most of Nancy's music. And this is really special because in classical music, you can't always sort of do this to it when you're listening. It's not usually possible. And that's Romanticism. You know, Baroque music had that kind of dance feel to it, the weight on the front of the bar, and you can actually sort of groove to Baroque music if you try it. But classical music, Romantic music came along and sort of broke that down and became more complicated in terms of counterpoint and rubato, stretching, you know, for emotive purposes. But what got lost was this sense of pulse, this sense of groove, which is now coming back into a lot of contemporary music. And I wanted to ask Nancy, what are the influences driving a lot of the rhythmic impulses in your music?
Would it surprise you to know that rock music from the 60s, that might have a little bit to do. But honestly, I grew up with Bach. And I don't know if any of you remember or know Nelson Whitaker, who was on the faculty here. I don't know if that name rings a bell or not, but no, it does to some people. He was a Bach expert, and he was sort of a mentor of mine here, my piano teacher, and it was just so happened to work out very well for me because I love Baroque music. I grew up with it. It's in my blood. My mother was actually a church organist in a Lutheran church where I am now an organist. So I grew up with Bach, and I grew up with counterpoint, and as a matter of fact, for many years here taught, this is kind of funny for some of my students to find out, I taught 18th century counterpoint here for many, many years. And the sensibility and the math behind Baroque music has always fascinated me, and I'm actually, it's funny that we were talking today about the music of Steve Reich, if you're familiar, and that music, he actually said that he liked Baroque music and then kind of skips over classical romantic and hops into minimalism. And I can understand that, actually. There's a lot of the rhythm, and I suppose I have always enjoyed playing fugues. I had a student that came in this week, actually was apologizing because he said, oh, all I wrote was a fugue, and I went, yeah. Like, you don't hear fugues too often in this day and age, and I like the mathematical sensibility of fugue. And obviously, you know, that combined with rock influences. I don't know how well you'll like this or not, but I'm a huge fan of Stravinsky and huge fan of John Adams, and you'll probably hear a lot of those influences in there as well.